Hello everyone. Our project is a small resort cum homestay nestled in the lush green hills of IIA Kerala in a cardamom plantation property. The site is located about 2.5 kilometers from Elappara, which is the nearest town, and the dotted lines actually represent the partial boundary of the site. Access to the site is through government roads, a further 1.5 kilometers of shared road between plantations, and then mud roads leading to the exact spot in the property. Here's an aerial that shows the distant town and the building. The site is part of 60 acres of cardamom plantations interspersed with a variety of rare and common forest trees. So when it was decided to make this beautiful chunk of nature open to more people interested in experiencing this, we decided to go ahead with a very small project exactly for the same reasons. So the project would have a very large common room or hall and minimum number of bedrooms for renting out. We felt that anything larger would take away from the charm of the place and would only be a disruption. After several decades of the site, a horizontal clearing uphill in the steep terrain where used to exist a dilapidated staff shelter building in disuse was finalized. This particular spot was close to and easily accessed from an existing kitchen or service building that would help us avoid duplication of services as well as provide necessary assistance during construction. Dotted lines show the access roads, and the yellow dotted line actually shows the guest entry through gardens into the building. And instead, we have some photographs showing the ramp, the service ramp, and also a view from the vehicular access road. Coming to the planning, here are some schematics that show the evolution of the plan from a simple square to a triangle with the longest side opening to the north to the downhill, with views to the downhill, and the bedroom blocks arranged on the southeast and southwest with views to the hills above. The core of the plan is this very large triangular pavilion positioned parallel to the contours of the site, facing the plantation greens. The guest entry from the mud road below, which is about 4 meters down, is shown in dotted, and the yellow highlighted is the veranda. Here's a photo of the veranda that is sort of a transition space between the greens below and the entry to the pavilion. The main hall is designed as a multifunctional room, one that is the reception, waiting, lobby, recreation, all at once, and all interchangeable, a free span area with a floating roof above. A few early sketches that show this area and how we went forward with inclining the roof a little bit, a few degrees to the north, to open up for larger views and a more open feel. It's a schematic section, and the same section superimposed on a photograph. Conceptually, it wasn't just about finding a clearing in the greens and positioning the building in that spot. Such raw functional aspects aside, it was about creating a building itself that symbolized clearing in multiple ways. Being in a calm space, inside nature, about clearing one's own mind, about building and unbuilding at the same time, about creating a building to be looked out from, one that effortlessly blends into the surrounding nature without deliberately using any camouflage elements. It was about striving throughout for ease and simplicity and fighting the urge to build more. Coming back to the pavilion, we wanted to create a free space without any hindering columns and a large, fluid, open area. Some more sketches and some photographs that show this area, which has the front span of about 23 meters. Achieving this large truss span for the triangular lean-to roof was a logistical challenge in itself, and we had to go with some in-situ fabrication. And these are some photos of the pavilion. You can see the prominent front cantilevered front truss system that's actually painted yellow to make the building stand out and at the same time seamlessly merge with the nature around. Wall paintings of cardamom leaves in unexpected hues is an ode to the plantations around and what the town itself is named after. Elappara literally translates to cardamom hills or cardamom rocks. Here's a photo from the inner corner of the triangular pavilion of the hall looking out into the greens above on a misty day. And the pavilion has very fluid furniture arrangement, and but for this bare concrete counter, every other furniture here is interchangeable. The general aesthetic in terms of materials used in the project lean toward a combination of lightweight metal structure for roofing, concrete roof for bedrooms, and using granite available at site for the rubble-walled rooms. One can see a rather eclectic mix of furniture and furnishings here. Few pieces from clients' other projects, a few newly bought pieces, and a lot of sourced antiques. Some custom hanging lights. And how do I play this? Yeah, it's a video that shows in 360 degrees. The contrast between the painted roof truss and the rustic stone flooring in the hall and the steps blending into the outdoors, the sliding glass on the entire north facade, moody, misty, and cheerful as per the weather and time of the day, the paintings and the eclectic furniture are all at once practical and dreamlike. Coming back to the plan, we can see the bedrooms arranged on the back side, on the southeast and southwest side of the triangular pavilion. Very simple, they're designed as very simple resting rooms with almost Spartan decor, and they all have views to the greens uphill. Here's an aerial shot at the edge of the roof. No typical landscaping was forced onto the site. Here's a partial aerial that tries to capture the beautiful natural landscape around the building. One can see meandering mud pathways framed by the arches of cardamom leaves all along. Boulders found on the site were often slightly relocated to form landmarks. Very few concrete or stone steps were introduced, only when most necessary. Little walking bridges made out of metal mesh over existing rivulets in order not to disturb seasonal water flow paths, and the mesh bridges. Wherever we could find a flat area, as per need, we made it into little sitting gardens. Utmost care was taken to retain existing trees, and bald patches formed during construction, were promptly replanted with cardamom plants. An evening shot. Of course, no grand front yard for this one. After all, this is only a clearing in the forest. Thank you.
Kindly move on to the Q&A session.
Thank you.
Okay. So when we went to the site, I think it had recently got its license. So it will be nice to see how, this space works or the space grows. That's an important consideration when, reviewing a project. There's a certain mystical and abstract quality to the entire space, which is interesting. So I'm keen to understand, what was the client's brief to you about the project?
It actually started with a personal project for the client. So that is the reason we try to keep economy was one very important thing for the client, because this wasn't entirely for commercial or business purposes. The client initially started this as a few rooms, and he is abroad, lives in the Middle East, for him to come and rest. But then the rest of the year, the property is left vacant and unused. So that is one reason why he decided to have rooms there. Initially, he wanted 6 or 7 rooms because that's what all the consultants say when you want to run a project successfully. 5 rooms, I think. But then we decided to stick to 3. So I think that's what suits the site, you know.
Okay.
The gesture is quite interesting. Atypical in a sense. The form of the building, the way it opens out. And I was very curious to know that when you open out like that, what would be the impact of driving rain? But you opened up to the north, so
Yeah.
you actually don't have too much of
Also,
movement of water or that kind of stuff.
That
It's
has
also
not
you're not
been an
very
issue.
high up.
No, we sort of planned, no, we didn't place it on the very top. No, we did not. So we have used to the uphill and downhill. And we do have a glass sliding door on the north side, on the entire north facade. So in case of very heavy rains and security issues, if any, but it's
slide
rarely ever closed.
Right. No, it's an interesting fresh gesture, and I think in terms of the rooms at the back, you know, tucked away, and the services, it kind of fulfills the basic requirement of a getaway place in the hills. So at that level, I think it's quite an interesting building. Also, I'm trying to imagine what it would do eventually, you know, with the trees growing and not just depending on the cardamom for the ground cover, but eventually losing away all of the sky that it captures right now.
Yeah.
Then I think the glazing that you have lifted up starts to make sense because of the daylight that you require eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's an interesting project. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, landscape projects always have a longer life in terms of their assessment because it's the landscape that you build in and then the landscape that grows, you know, say 2 decades later or later on. So how do you see your project in light of the future? Because it's a landscape entry, and second, there's a dialogue which is you into the landscape and then the landscape overtaking your project.
Yeah.
So how do you think your project responds?
As you know, this will be repetition, but then we did not introduce any new kind of trees or plants there. So it's all existing. Even I told you the bald patches that we found, we decided to fill with cardamom plants for the exact same reason. We know that it's going to grow really well in that because the plantation has been around for. And how it's going to grow with the, somehow this clearing was there in the land. So very fortunately, we don't have any huge trees hiding the view at this point. So we only have to stop that from happening in the future. You know? It was the simple positioning that did the trick for us.
Why would you want to stop that?
In case it grows to the buildings. In
But-
case it grows too close to the buildings.
But I thought this building was not very self-conscious.
Yeah.
of where
It is an unbuilding, we would call it, but to an extent, but yeah.
Yeah, no large trees in
Yeah,
front, right?
Maybe that's a mystery we have to, you know, we just have to wait for a few years and see what happens.
And that might be a bad, unpleasant thing for you, but I think it's a pleasant surprise, no? To see nothing beyond, just trees.
Yeah.
You know, I think the entrapment, I mean, this is something that us as architects, when we work on these kind of sites, the compelling desire to capture the view, isn't it tiring?
Oh, yeah. That's what we always hear, right?
Like
To
you
view
stare
and
at a beach,
everything.
I mean, you have a beachfront home and you're looking at the sea day in and day out. Would you not want to turn away from it and then go and see the sea when you want to?
Yeah. So in the advantage that I have in this particular project is that there's only one building. I don't have to, like the earlier project, I don't have to arrange 20 villas. So that's an advantage I had. But then there's a pavilion which is looking to one side, which is out all open, and then there are the bedrooms which have a different view, which could be closed for a different mood.
No, I think that was the good part about this, that you've filled yourself up. Now you can retire peacefully because you don't have anything more to do. And I think that's quite relaxing. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.